Let me start sharing screen one. Let's see. Cool. Can everyone see my screen? Cool. So yeah, you should just see like the React Native docs here. Pull that chat. Cool. Yeah, so Taylor won't be able to join us today, but so it'll just be me. So if you have any questions or someone's written something in the chat and I'm not responding to it, please just unmute yourself and yell at me to look at the chat or ask a question. We'll go over a little bit of like just catch up for those that haven't been in the previous sessions. Basically, we just started like this project. Taylor, who's a co-organizer of this group, he's been doing React web development for a number of years, and I've been doing some React web development, but mostly the last few years specifically doing React Native mobile app development. And he's like been asking me questions about React Native stuff and the differences between like React web development and React Native development. And yeah, and also there have been a lot of interest in the community in this React JAX community about React Native. So we just decided let's build an app. I am a beer collector of sorts, and there's not really an app that caters to like the specific needs I have. So it's like an app idea of making like a simple inventory that can also be a social app. It seemed like a good kind of app project to do as a group because it's, you know, so basic kind of forms and stuff we can start off with, and then we have to build a full stack application. We have to build a backend so that you can persist your data across apps or across phones, just like to your account. You can have like social aspects like chat. You can maybe have a marketplace where people can buy and sell and trade rare beers. But yeah, at its core, it's like an inventory. So for people that have like a large, like you could think of it like a wine cellar. There's a great app I think called Cellar Tracker, I think, that is like specifically for wine cellar tracking. And this is sort of a similar thing, but for beer. Yeah, and then in our first session, like as a group, we decided on the name. I can't remember who it was that came up with it, but the app's name is Beer Cellar, like BIER Cellar. We created like we created this little board later with tickets and stuff, but we did start on the app right away in the first day. When we get those recordings up, please check them out on YouTube from the first session. We've only had, I think, 3 sessions so far. The code is up here and on GitHub. You can pull it down. This is like we're just pushing straight to main after each one of these sessions. So feel free to pull this down. And yeah, I've got my terminal here. So the window's a little small. So this is what you can do after you pull down this project. It's just like get started with it. So I'm just gonna go into the folder and do a yarn start. So that starts up our Metro bundler, which is like the bundler that's going to bundle all of our code and serve it to our dev instance here in the app. And now we're going to actually do yarn iOS. This is in the same folder. You can do yarn iOS just right away to get the iOS app, and it will also kick off the Metro bundler that we just started manually. But I just like to start it manually personally. Yeah, so this will go and build the app for the other. Here's the code base. This is VS Code, right? Here's all of our project here. For any of the other scripts, you can see like I did the yarn start. I also have the iOS here. These are just like shorthands for like yarn React Native run iOS or React Native start. We've got these other two we haven't done yet. We haven't built the Android app yet either, but we could probably do that pretty soon. We're gonna look at the chat or the links in the meetup. Yes, the links to this GitHub are in the meetup. I don't think the links to like their little Jira board is there. I don't think I can add everybody or make like a public Jira board. I'm not really sure. But we can maybe look at that before next time. That'd be kind of cool. We could also maybe stop using Jira and just start using the GitHub project management, which is basically the same thing as Jira from our point of view. We don't need that much. But just move this down a little bit. You guys probably can't see it, but there's like Zoom stuff over over my screen. But yeah, so far in the app and like the previous sessions, we've created these like basic screens. We brought in React navigation, which is giving us this tab bar navigation down here. You've probably seen this in like a bajillion apps. That's a very common practice and a pattern that people know. Generally speaking, you should probably follow like the patterns that people are familiar with, unless you're, you know, a very, very special kind of app. But yeah, so far we added this, we styled the like these things. Yeah, we haven't done a whole heck of a lot more. We talked a little bit also about, I think some people were especially interested in this last time, about like folder structure and best practices. So we're starting to do that. The idea behind sort of this session is to like, or this whole series is to basically not start off with like what is the full stack you should use out of the box, but like we start building from very bare bones things and then either quickly realize that that's insufficient for us, or and then like take on some library or something like that, or just we keep going. Like for those that were here, I think in the first session, we built like a really simple navigation purely in JavaScript that you could like press the button and it would show you the different screen. It was definitely inadequate. And so we switched to React navigation pretty quickly there, and we built out this tab navigator with these different screens here. It's pretty easy to, like with an app like this, to like add more. How can I contain more? Well, I lied. We can't add like a duplicate screen, which kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's like pretty easy. This is like our entire navigation container for the entire app. So not much going on here. Pretty simple to put together. In terms of folder structure, like we've moved everything into this SRC, which is just a source folder. You can name it whatever you want. This is just like a convention. And then we're starting to put things into like our components folders, screens folder, style folder, and we'll have more folders as well as we're moving along. But basically this is like place like colors in our style folder. This is just a place where we can have like app-wide colors so that we're not like writing literal color values in our styles, so that it's very easy to change later on. Like for instance, if the brand color needed to be like that instead of that or something like that. you know, we could change it in one place and it changes everywhere in the app. Yeah, and then our screens, like we have some pretty basic stuff here around inputs for our beers. We put this in a scroll view so that it can scroll. So even if we're on like a very small screen, or if we just have tons of inputs that we're adding here, we can still click add a beer and it'll still be visible. But yeah, that's sort of where we're at. Any questions so far? Cool. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is going to look at our little Jira board. And we created this little issue for ourselves to track what we're doing on this like beer logging form MVP. And MVP here just stands for minimum viable product. So it's like the very first iteration of the screen, like what do we absolutely have to have? And we decided that like all that's really required is that a user be able to enter the name of the brewer or like the brewery name and the beer name. That was like the very, very bare minimum. And we've got some follow-up tickets as well to cover other things like optional fields, like when you bought it, where you bought it, how many you have, what year is it, and like other things like actually integrating with the third-party service to give us more metadata about the specific beer. But those are all things that we want to have come later and not block us from like delivering like the fictional user here a minimal app experience. So one thing I noticed on here is like when I tap these fields, like the actual brewery name is the thing that's there. It's not like a placeholder, it's like an actual value. So I want to change that. So here I'm out, by the way, I just hit the letter R in the terminal that's running the React Native, the Metro bundler. So you can do it like Command R on the actual simulator. Sometimes that doesn't always work. So like it's much more reliable to just hit R in the terminal here. There's also another one which is D, which for some reason doesn't seem to be working. There we go. And this is like the developer menu. This is in a React Native app when you're in the like develop, like the debug build of an app. We'll talk about the difference between like a debug and a production build of an app later when we go to actually submit this to the App Store. But for all our intents and purposes right now, all of our builds are debug builds of this app. So one thing you can do is you can kind of do all these things for like, and just to be clear, like none of this would be visible or available at all in like an actual production build of this app. But we can do things like disable fast refresh. If you want to do that, that's like live code updates. Don't usually do anything there, but sometimes I think the things I use the most here is the Perf Monitor, which is this guy up here. Excuse me. This is something I use pretty frequently when building React Native apps, especially on screens that are really complex, or like there are complex calculations or animations going on. Right now, like you can see, like our app like doesn't really have much going on. The numbers to actually care about here, I should probably say that, is this UI and this JS number. That's 60. Anybody want to guess what the 60 represents? 60 what? I can give a hint. Oh, there we go. Well, yes, FPS, frames per second. So that's the frames per second on the native UI thread and the frames per second on the JS thread. So in React Native, like architecturally, I don't want to like get into this too much if people aren't interested in it, but architecturally, React Native renders things natively through like the UI thread here handles like actual rendering on the screen. Like everything you see is native, but there's also a JS thread that is running. So you can think of it as like a little JavaScript computer as well running and doing calculations. And that'll be a lot of the code that we're doing. Like if we wrote a long calculation in JavaScript here, that would be something that's almost certainly going to be running on the JavaScript thread. And if it takes it, what is it, 16 milliseconds, I think is 1/60th of a second. If it takes it longer than 16 milliseconds to compute on the JavaScript thread, and that blocks the JavaScript thread from telling the UI thread what to render, you get like a frame drop. So we could probably simulate that later, but just something to be aware of is like you have this developer menu. And that's like one of the things you'd be looking at in like a production app. It's probably like the first thing I do when there's like an issue, like with a janky screen or something like that, is go look at the perf monitor. Yeah. So yeah, one thing I noticed here is like this is actually the value. So that's because we're doing this. So we created this like use state. We'd actually put the placeholder name there. Instead, what we should do is, well, let me just copy these out. I think it's just placeholder as a prop on this. Yeah, seems right. Is that not right? Let's see. We can always go look at the trusty docs here. React Native text input. So this is something I do like all the time when coding. Is just looking at the docs. It's usually the very fastest way to figure something out if I forget something. The string that would be rendered before text input has been entered. So maybe I have to like actually do something like actually refresh this after adding the placeholder. So let me like refresh the app again by just pressing R. Let's go over here. Still doesn't seem to be working. Placeholder the right thing. Looks like it's the color. Text color. Okay, maybe that's it. We need to make it like white. Hey, thank you. Thank you for that for a while. Let us then make sure to use like an actual color constant that we have. So I'll just use, what is the color that we want to use? Probably want like usually placeholder colors are like a lighter version, right? So let's do like, let's bring in, we already have gray coming in. So why don't we just call it gray? And do that. The text color. So that should work like that, and then we can make the actual input style Oh, it is gray here. So we should make like a different color of this gray. I'm never good with these values, so I'm just going to use like a tool. Like like a lighter hex color. Calculate lighter hex color. Sure. I think there's like a really simple way to do this, but I can't remember. Color code is valid. Submit. Let's see what this does. So that lighten. Oh, okay. So these are our lighter versions. I guess this one, that's the same as what we have. Maybe we want darken is actually what we want. So let's take like export const gray placeholder. I don't know. We're gonna definitely come back and like change all these around to be better later. But for the time being, like let's just try this. I think this will be like more or less the direction we want to go. Let's see. Oh, it should be darker, shouldn't it? Yeah, it should. Well, the nice thing now is that we can just change this value again and again. That seems dark. Maybe we'll go one more. Yeah, that seems more like placeholder-ish. Yeah. We should probably come back and create like a proper design system too at some point, but we'll just go as quickly as we can through this, I think. So what are we doing here in this so far is really just creating this input field. We want to log it out right now. That's all we're doing. And yeah. So we should be doing though is like persisting this, right? I think that's what our ticket calls for. It's like it should be persisted across app sessions. So it needs to be like this beer needs to be like here, right? So like you add a beer and then it shows up in like your list of beers. So we should probably first create like a better ticket, I think. Inventory screen, or like, yeah, inventory screen. I'm gonna call this one also like MVP. And then like the my beer screen should display a list of all the beers that a user has added. Okay, so I think that's what we're gonna shoot for next. So right now we're just like logging out whatever someone types here, and it's not going anywhere. So we actually want it to like go somewhere. I'm gonna also like label this as like log. Do we have a log? No. That we had a tag for this, but so yeah, let's talk about lists. Let's go to my beer, which is like a pretty empty screen. And let's look at lists in React Native. So the most common list you'll see in React Native, well, probably the most common, the interact with is a flat list. So this is just like, it's very simple. Don't let the name, if you're like, what does flat mean? Like, don't worry about that. It's pretty simple. So here's like our data structure. It's just an array. And in this case, it's an array of objects that look like this. Each object has an ID and a title. So the ID is unique in this case. And then you got the title there, which is just a string. This is a really common structure for a flat list. Like you build out the components like this. So here's like our actual flat list. We're giving it, these are like the minimum props you need to fill out for a flat list. There are a lot of other things like that add like really nice user experience and really nice ways to write and manage your code for an implementation of a list in React Native. But these are the bare minimum things, which is just, I'm going to display all the items. So what you do is you just tell it the data, which is the array up here. You give it a render item, which is a function that returns an item, like so an actual item component, like this, in this case, this like first item thing, which is just like a pink background and the name, the title here. And then a key extractor. So the key extractor is just a way for React to keep track of like each element in the list. So it needs to be unique. So in this case, like we're just using the ID here. Yeah, the main like meat here is the render item. So if we look up here, render item is declared here. And what it does is this render item function you give to flat list is going to basically just map over all the items in the array. So you might see something like, can I write here, I think? Yeah. So you might see something like this in a web app, like data, was it data.map, and then something like, I don't know, like item, and then you have something like div, and then item dot title. You know, something. This is just like pseudocode for the moment, but yeah, you would have like something rendering, like mapping over the data and taking each item in that array, and then doing something with it. In this case, like displaying the title of it. That's something you might see in web, but then you gotta like deal with like long lists, and you got to write all this other stuff like, what about the header? What about the footer? What if it's paginated? What if it's a super long list and memory intensive? Like all those things. Whereas flat list just gives you a bunch of that stuff out of the box. So it's actually an implementation of a virtualized list, which you don't ever really need to use in React Native unless you're building like a very customized list and you need that kind of low level. There's also section list, which is like if you've got, you've probably seen this before in like the contacts app. I think they have an example here probably. Yeah, so you've got like the sides here in the main dishes, drinks. Those are the section headers. And it's very much the same as like a flat list, except you can have these like sections. You can just think of like, I think the simplest thing is like a contacts app that has like A, and then all of your contacts that start with the letter A, and then B, and then all your contacts start with letter B. That's a section list. But yeah, flat list is going to be something that is going to be like your go-to for lists, and I think it's what we're going to use here to begin with. Any questions so far? All right, I'll get to it then. So no, this is good, cool. So I'm just gonna do this. This is like, I think people have different approaches to like how they want to like work on stuff or start building out a component or something like that. But I always start with like, if this component needs data, I'm just gonna give it dummy data unless I've like got the data I need right then and there. I'm just gonna build this out with dummy data. So we know from our MVP of like adding a beer that the required fields for any beer are going to be the brewery and the beer name. So we know that like here I can do like we're not doing TypeScript yet. We will bring TypeScript in later. This is a place where it definitely shines, I think, in my developer workflow. But for right now, we can do like const dummy beer, and we will just create like we'll create an object here. Will be like brewery name, like what's the local beer? Actually, I've got a hoodie on by coincidence, unplanned. That is Upland. It is a brewery in Indiana. So I'll just use that. And they have what's one of the, I think they have one like beer name wheat. I think that's what it's called. So that's like the minimum like a minimum entry, and I think in our database here for a beer for our inventory. So dummy data is just going to be like a bunch of these, right? So dummy data can just be like dummy beer, dummy beer, dummy beer, something like that, right? Cool, and that should be good enough for us right now. Except, well, we'll get to this later. We don't have a unique ID yet for these, but we can get to that later. Let's see, let's just put it to do for our dummy data. We just talked about this though. Use key. Let's see, use key. Unique key. Excuse me. So yeah, then here in this beer screen, I don't think we need like this. I think we have like a smaller size header size. I think that's what we're using on the other screen, so we can do that. Oh. I need to bring it in there, of course. All my beers. We can just like throw this into a like actually, you know, we already have a header component, which is this my beer up here. So I don't think I think this is just like redundant at this point. So yeah, I will just like straight away just let's see this flat list in action. So, oh, it's probably upset that I haven't. No, I did import it. Data equals dummy data. And we need a render item. We can just, for the time being, let's hold off on this for right now. Let's build out. We'll come right back to that. We're going to build out the item first. So we'll do view, and then we're going to call this like style equals styles dot item container. Then let's go define that style. That's fine. So what is this? This is going to be like a row. Let's just create like height, background color, red, and width. Right. So there we got that. It's a super ugly row. You remember from last time we did this thing where we pulled off the height and width of the screen using this use windows or use window dimensions hook. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to also clean that up at a later time to not have to like bring this in to every component. Oh, I think there was, oh, it's a shame. I thought it would auto import for us, but it didn't. Yeah, so now we've got that. We're gonna apply it this way. So if you remember from last time, like if you wanted to apply like a variable, you have like, you know, like const my special computed style variable or something. And it's going to be like, I don't know, width times 1 in this case. Let's do that. Then oh, sorry. 1, right? If you wanted to like apply that for some reason, you would need to like put the style in an array instead of just a single style like you see here. Here we're doing an array, and in this syntax, excuse me, for style objects, the last will override the previous. So if we say like width, or actually we need to make this not a style object. So it'd be like width is my special computed whatever. That will override, even though we have specified width at 100 here, because this is in the item container and because there's a width property that comes later in this style array, it's going to override that width. So this is actually dead code at this point, basically. So yeah. What else do we want? I think we need in our item, we need like the actual text, right? So we need the, we're just pulling what we did. Did I do it here? I didn't. Let's pull in what we have over here for text, I think. Yeah, here we go. So if you remember from previous ones, we built this like BC text. BC because BC is the name of the app, it's beer cellar. So this is just a way for us to differentiate like a text component from like React Native versus like our own wrapper around that text component. In this case, like it's not really doing much right now, but we're going to use it because we're definitely going to be extending this to be a much smarter and more robust component in what it helps us do. But for the time being, we'll just pull it in like this. We need to import BC text. Hey, VS Code helped us out there with the auto import. Add beer, that's not actually what we wanted. We wanted like a beer or brewery name, and then we want to do another one. So that, by the way, like that's just duplicating a line that is like Option Shift down arrow in on my Mac. I think it's probably a pretty similar keyboard shortcut on like Windows or Linux. And beer name. So something like that. Let's see. This also needs. This is going to bother me a lot. Margin. So on margin, I think it's the same on web. Like you've got like margin left, like 10. Oh, I didn't want to do that. So there, I wanted to actually do padding. So padding left of like 10. It's going to like bump the content in 10 pixels. You might do like padding right 10 so that it's like not, it's bumped in from the far right as well. Or you can write shorthand for this, like padding horizontal, which is both left and right. Or if you want to top and bottom, you can just do padding, and that'll be left, right, top, bottom padding. So do that for right now. I think this is fine. Doesn't need to be perfect. One thing we're already doing is violating our rule of not using style literals. So like text like colors or sizes or anything like that. There's also like, we can set this up later, but there's a really nice ESLint rule that will automatically warn us each time we use a style literal. So that'd be nice. Yeah, it's like, it's not going to break your app. It's just going to make your life a lot easier when you need to change like how, like the padding across your rows in your, app that's got like 50 different kinds of rows. If you do it in a style constants file, like in this colors file, you only have to update it one place, and it's updated everywhere. Yeah, so this seems good enough for our item right now. We can come back and style this again. I'm just gonna get rid of this, and maybe like, so it's not this red thing, and then maybe add like border color of like red for right now, and border width so we can actually see it of like 2. It's still pretty aggressive with that red. Yeah, we'll just do that for right now. So there's our like very basic row item. Yeah, so that's what like the flat list is going to be rendering. So now I'm actually going to like copy this. Paste. Oop, actually, I didn't want to paste it yet. Const item, like beer item, I'm going to call it our component. Actually want to return. This is just going to be like a React component, right? Except it's going to take in props, it's going to take item. So if you remember, like our flat list is going to map over our whole data array. And it's going to pass our render item function that we're about to connect up. It's going to map over, take each item in that array and pass it into this beer item component. It's just React all the way down here. So it's just another React component. Just to prove it, we can just write this, and right here should work. Yeah. So that works. We're gonna, of course, like, it's not actually getting passed in item right now. If we did have TypeScript, fun fact, if we did have TypeScript set up in this project right now, TypeScript would be yelling at us for not passing in item into the props here, but we're still just in JavaScript land. So yeah, let's hook up that flat list. Render item. I'm just going to check on the syntax again. I'm going to try to do this by memory. Beer item. This input will work. Something like that. I failed from memory. Render item. Yeah, it's the function it takes an item. Oh, we need to like put the props on there right away. Or am I just forgetting? Okay, that was it. All I was doing, I was forgetting the closing bracket here. Yeah, let me get rid of this guy here. There, now we've got like our list. If you notice, like it's also scrollable, even though we didn't like put this in a scroll view, like all flat lists are like scroll views. So I got that. You may notice something like I did say that there were 3 things that were required. When I take away this render item, like we don't see a list. When I take away this data, there's no data. We don't see a list. There's a third thing, which I did say was required, but it doesn't seem like it's required because we could actually get our list to show up. But that's the key extractor. That's like getting a unique ID, and so that React knows exactly what the data is it's supposed to render. You won't see this as like a requirement when you're writing this if you're not working with a very large list or like trying to scroll really fast. Oop. I scrolled a little too fast, got into iOS there. But it will be required. Like one thing you'll see is like on a really large list as you're scrolling, React Native is actually virtualizing a bunch of the data that's off screen. So the way that flat list is optimized is to give users like a smooth experience and use the resources for like what they can actually see, like the phone's resources, the system resources, and like virtualize and offload like the other things that are off the screen. So it is pretty important to get that key extractor in there and set up for a unique ID capturing of each element in your list. But yeah, here you go. Like we set up a very basic flat list implementation that's going to render all of our beers and show the, oh, actually, I'm lying. I forgot one thing. Item dot, what was this? Brewery name and item dot, I think it's beer name, right? Oh, it's yelling at me about that. Upland wheat, yeah, which was like, that's our beer. So cool. So we got this dummy data. There's a dummy beer. This is the basic mandatory shape for required fields. Just like made a simple array here with 3 of them. of these objects, and then we're displaying here in this flat list. And a render item is just rendering a bunch of these beer item components, but passing in the item from the array, and we get that. Any questions about this so far? Cool. Okay, this is fun. Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. So I think the next thing is connecting these two screens, right? So like right now we have this dummy data. We don't want dummy data. We want like the real thing. So I'm gonna get rid of that for right now. Yeah, it's gonna yell at me about that. Okay, we'll keep it for right now. And we'll replace it as soon as we have another source of data. So we've got, if we come back to this add beer screen, this will probably be, yeah, we'll probably end in about 25 minutes or so. So this might be like the last, like more major feature we do right now in this session. But if we come back to this add beer screen, you know, we talked about like how this doesn't actually do anything. Right now, it's just like console logging it out. That doesn't really do anything, and we don't have a way to like get this data over to the screen. So this is it's kind of a problem, and it's a very, very common problem in a React or React Native app or like any kind of app, basically. But this is like state management. So there are a few things to talk about here. One is like you get into pretty big conversations in the React community around state management, and like you can talk about state management in React apps forever, because there's so many different options and so many different opinions. Look, when you talk about like state management in this sense, this is probably something that's going to be pretty global to this app. Like we always kind of want to have access to the inventory of your beers, probably like throughout the app. Like I could see like as we build out the other screens in this app, like around like the marketplace that we're going to build, or like the social social like chat and friending and stuff like that. We're going to build like the actual inventory is going to be something that's like you need access to basically everywhere in this app. So like that's something I would call global state, or something that probably belongs in a kind of global state. Redux is like a go-to, like if you're working on large React apps, React Native apps, like you've probably heard of Redux. It is like the default global state management solution in like React apps for like the last few years. There's some like advice to like not use it. Even like the creator of Redux, Dan Abramov, I think is hesitant and would not directly recommend that like, oh, you need state management in your app, use Redux. Like it serves purposes. We're going to actually not use it until we need it. So we're going to do this in the simplest way we can do first. Maybe it's not going to work for us in the long run, but for right now, we're going to do it the simplest way we can. And the simplest way we can do something like this is to like share state across these screens. So look at this. And we're going to try to figure this out. So like one way to do that would be to like have something like here in our app. We could say like const there's no like at. I'm literally gonna just copy this. So we have like we have this like state here. So we're gonna do this. This is like bear with me because this is definitely not going to be like the final thing we do. But this is a way that this will work to do this globally, or like in a sense globally. So we're going to like the root component in this tree of our app. Right, we're in this app app.js, which is, if you remember, like that's our entry point. Technically our entry point is this index.js because that's like the convention in JavaScript land and Node land in particular. And basically this index.js is just like, hey, let's register this React component, React Native component, and we're going to tell it like our app name, which is not, we haven't done anything with our app name so far, and like render the app, which is coming from app.js. So essentially like app.js is like our entry point for our React app. So what we're doing, this is like the root basically of our React app, our React Native, like the tree. And we're going to just like create these functions here, these use states, like the simplest kind of like stateful hook. And we're going to just straight up pass these functions. So we're going to pass this down. Let's see how we can get that down. Into it. Can I actually do this? Let's see. I may not be able to do this super janky thing I was trying to do. It doesn't look like I can do that here, which is probably good because it's going to be a really bad practice. So what we can do instead, something slightly better, is context API. Yeah. So you may have seen this before. Context API. I thought they had like a dark mode on here. It's kind of really bright on my eyes. Maybe not. But you may have seen the context API before. This is actually what Redux uses under the hood these days. What context does is basically allows you, well, as it says here, provides a way to pass data through the component tree without having to pass props down manually at every level. So you may be familiar with like prop drilling. That's this concept of like find the common parent and just like send down through every child component until you get to the component that you want to, just send down those props. That's like a bad practice because you end up just like passing down props through components that don't need it, don't have any other use for it except to pass it down to another component. So context is a way to basically do dependency injection, but like basically circumvent the entire tree and just like get you the thing you need right away.
I was always excited to learn context, and then when I got to it, all of a sudden the person that I'm learning it from said that you shouldn't use it. Like if you can drill directly to a component, is that true? Like you shouldn't overuse context.
I guess like I guess there could be like an opinion that you should do prop drilling instead, but it's generally, I believe, frowned upon to do prop drilling as opposed to something like context.
Really? Context seemed like such a useful thing, and then it got to that part, and I was like, "What the?"
Yeah, I mean, it's what Redux uses, for instance. Like if we look at Redux.
Maybe that because context used to be like not recommended by React team to use it yet. It's been like a year or so since they recommend to use it. So a lot of people say that not to use it, but that is not true anymore.
Maybe it was old material.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Is there any trade-off?
Context
on,
is
like,
very powerful, especially if you use it with a use reduce hook. You can do a lot of damage with that.
so like in the work you do, would you ever do prop drilling then, or would you just use context all the time?
I
In
think,
my case, reuse.
yeah, it's kind of, it kind of depends. Like if it's something like, hey, like I need this, like I've got this parent component and I need to like get this data down to like a child like right below. There's no reason to like put it up in context or Redux or something like that. In that case, probably. But especially if it's things that aren't like it's probably easier to visualize this like a component tree. I'm hoping Google Image has like a good
We don't have to go off on a tangent if you want to.
this totally works here. So like in, let's see, let's choose this one. So like let's say that like M component here needed a prop, and so does J and N. Let's say like we have data in N and J needs the data. Like I would argue that like passing it through one component, that's not too bad. I wouldn't call that like, it's technically prop drilling through M if M doesn't need it. But that's not that bad. But if you have something like where J needs a piece of data and so does B over here, like that means to find the common parent, like you've got to go up to O. And now O, that doesn't care about that data at all, needs to be the one that has the like a set state in our use state example, like the set state and the actual state. It needs to hold it here and pass it down through E, through D, and then down to B, and then N, and down to J. That would be like you're hoisting state up to here and drilling it down. In a case like that, you might want to consider using context or your own like use reducer or state somewhere else.
You personally, as someone who works with it in production, if J needed something that N had, would you go through M or would you use context yourself?
I would pass it down probably. Yeah, it would be like a case where like N had something that it needed and it could set, and J also needed it. I would probably just pass it down through M. Yeah. Or it would be something that makes sense to have in something like Redux for your own usage of context.
Cool. Thank you so much for explaining that.
Yeah. One thing that, so we'll get into this later with like our colors and our style in general in our app. We're going to create like a theme context provider later on. Like that's my plan, at least, because it'll make things a lot easier. But then that would be like a provider that we have like over the entire app that like allows us to access that context easily. What else is going to say about context? Oh, general rule also is like don't use. I think it's still applicable, but don't use context for things that will change frequently, because it can cause re-renders, and I believe that it can be difficult for React to know if it should or shouldn't re-render in some instances. But I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts on that. That's kind of like a general rule of thumb. Again, I don't know if it still applies. Why do we discard creating the state in the parent element and passing it down as a prop? Yeah, I think we're going to actually do that. I just wanted to jump over to this context idea. And then I think, so let me actually see if we can do that with this pass prompts, React, navigation, tab bar. Pass prompts and parent time. I think we can do this. Let's see. We'll do with this, settings, components, and screen. Okay, like that. Okay. So tab screen, props. Oh, okay. Huh, interesting. So it's saying we can, if this is correct, we can basically do it like this. So it's gonna be hard to read here. So something like that. And I think it was like taking as a function props. And then we're just like a normal thing here. And then we're just spreading props. And what we want to do is like add beer, so we want to like set beer name. Something like that. Ooh. This is like super janky, but we're gonna do it anyway. And then actually I want to set it to like set brewery name. I guess that should work. And then, like, let's just see if this works. I'm just going to copy this down here. And it should be like my beer screen. And this, we just care about like brewery name equals brewery name, and then beer name equals beer name. I think we want. Why is this upset? Oh, we should close that up, right? That's pretty. Huh? So we're gonna just like straight up pass this down. This should now get set beer name. Yeah, set beer name, set brewery name, and set beer name from props. Let's see if that works. Oh, we do. Oh, yeah, we do need to pass that down as well. Closing these guys out. Brewery name, beer name. Oh. Brewery name, beer name. Cool. Let's see if the values actually update here. Yeah, cool. So that seems to be working there. And then what do we want here? We want no duplicate props. Oh, yeah. So I think what we actually want here is like we want this to show up on the other screen. Let's just prove that we can do that real quick. I'm just destructuring it off of the props here. So like another way you could have done, we could have done this is just like props, and then done like props dot brewery name, or we could do like const, like destructured off here, like brewery name, beer name equals props, which is just destructuring. So we get these variables, but I prefer to just straight up destructure it in the parameters or arguments of the React component. So let's get rid of this stuff. And let's just, for the time being, what I'm going to do actually is this. Comment out that, comment out that. And comment out this entire file list and just render the beer item. This is going to be like a dummy beer item that will have like, currently has our placeholder text. If you recall, I just added that here. We're going to put, or not our placeholder, like our actual, we set these initial values. Closing these out. So what we should see now is like, as I add a beer here, what are we doing? Upland beer. We should see them here. Don't see them there. Hmm. Let's start this. Nothing. Interesting. We should see. Like we can see that they're actually updating based on the global name. Because otherwise this wouldn't work, right? It could work. Let me just double check one thing. If I do like that, not there. Okay. So it's not actually going through. Brewery name, to add your screen. Brewery name, your name. Let's do it like this. Oh. So we get the variable name as well. Brewery name undefined. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're not familiar, I love this feature of console logging stuff. If you put in brackets, it will give you the variable name as well, which is nice. So it's interesting. We're not getting brewery name. Oh. I was trying to be clever there. That's probably why, right? The brewery name. Brewery name. I feel like I'm doing something really dumb. I just can't figure out what it is. So we're still getting undefined here, even if we do like this, right? Oh. No, that's not working. Okay. Anybody have any ideas? So we're actually getting it into this component. It is working. If we get that initial value right here, like 1, 2, 3. So what's different? That's this screen here. Why? Is there like a typo I'm not seeing? That's super strange. I would totally expect this to be working. All right, well, that's weird. There's something here on. Try one thing. Is the console log working? Yeah, let's try it. So log. See, brewery name. Let's do it like from app.js. Oh. Yeah, it's there. Let's keep this open and start changing stuff. Like it should be firing off that on every change. That's not done. So do we need to do this? Should be firing off. Oh, okay, yeah. Just not getting it at all. Oh. Add beer. Can we look at like I'm gonna just also just try to log out these values, beer name. So these aren't coming in at all, but they are coming into the screen. And are we doing this to the right? Add beer. Oh. Oh. Yeah. I guess my feeling of doing something dumb is accurate. So we in this component in the add beer screen, I actually have this like little component down here that is the thing that is passing. This is like our screen component from here that is getting these props. They're being passed to this thing right here, this component, because that's what we export out of this file. And that component is not recognizing, it's not written to be like accepting props. And it does not pass it to add beer form, which is where I thought we were passing the props to. That's why none of these things were working in here. super common, like real developer experience kind of stuff here. So we're gonna be really lazy here. This is not something that I would recommend just doing. I'm a big fan of like explicitly passing props through things, but for right now, we're just going to do this so that we get our sanity back. Yeah, there we go. So now we actually have these placeholders. So let's get rid of those. Well, not placeholders, but those initial values. Get rid of those. Let's just restart the app for fun. So we've got nothing in a row here. Brewery name, upland. Oh, let me, I think in my attempts to bug fix things. Oh, okay, so I'm like very heavy-handedly doing something wrong here. Set brewery name. So we're not actually getting this value sets. This one working? Yeah. So I just like should be calling it like this. Hey. Sanity is slowly coming back here. And then we have our beer there. Right, that was that was definitely a brain fart, I think. So always good to check. So this is also like, I know some people were asking about when we're going to bring in TypeScript. We made the decision in the first session to not initialize our project with TypeScript and to bring that in later. This is something that like I probably take for granted now because I've been writing with TypeScript for a couple of years now in almost all the React Native apps that I work on. That's something that TypeScript would have caught. So it's something that TypeScript would have yelled at me about here and been like, hey, my beer screen is not expecting this prop brewery name or this prop beer name because on, or not in the my beer screen, in the add beer screen, it would be like, hey, none of these 4 props should be getting passed here because they aren't here in this add beer screen.
Would you recommend?
Would have saved the headache. What?
Would you recommend, having said that, since you said that's pretty much what you use in production, is that pretty much standard that you'll need TypeScript and we should probably just learn React with TypeScript rather than?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of projects out there and like real world projects that don't use TypeScript. There are a lot that I think there are a lot of JavaScript developers that don't like TypeScript, but I would highly recommend it. If nothing else, even if you don't use TypeScript in production, it will help you understand JavaScript better and like make JavaScript clearer to you. Like as you're working with it, like TypeScript has made me a better JavaScript developer, I think. Except in this instance where I'm like TypeScript was like a crutch, I guess. But yeah, I think it's a good example. Like one of the reasons why people hesitate on like learning TypeScript, like one, it's like one more thing to learn. And there's like this whole concept of JavaScript fatigue and like, I don't want to learn new things. There's already so much new and things are changing still so quickly. But I think part of the reason is like people think or assume that TypeScript is like extra work because you have to like write out the types. So like I would say like the TypeScript part of this would be like interface, add beer form props. It would be like this, like set beer name, and that would be like void, I think. Same for like set brewery name, void, brewery name, we string. Oh, whoa. String and beer name would also be string. So this is like, and then this would be like add beer form props. There is like all the TypeScript for this file essentially that I would write. And now, like, if this file were like a .ts file and we had TypeScript in this project, TypeScript would be able to tell me like, hey, if for some reason like I'm passing in something for brewery name that's like a number instead of a string, it would be like, yo, what are you doing? That's supposed to be a string. Same would happen if I'm like, if I'm writing this where there's no way that these props are going to get passed in, like we had here before, like when it was just like that, right? TypeScript would yell at me and be like, yo, it would yell at me right here and it'd say like, hey, add beer form expects these 4 props as mandatory. And it would yell at me there. So I'd get like a red squiggly line in my interface, in my VS Code right here. But literally, like, this is all you have to do to make this like a TypeScript component. So it's definitely not like a scary thing. And you can see like, this is not a lot of extra code. Like, this is just saying, like, this is kind of a weird thing. I think if you're coming for just out, it's like, what is this like function to void? It just means like, there's nothing else going on here afterwards. It's just going to do one thing.
Do you have to do anything different when you set up the app to start if you're using TypeScript?
Yeah, you do. So we'll do that. Maybe we do that next time.
I can look it up. I don't want to get you off path again.
Oh, it's okay. But yeah, there would be, basically we would have one more config file here. We'd have a .ts config. And we would have we'd have like TypeScript dependencies here. That'd be about it. So we made that decision that we're going to make this project a JavaScript project first and then bring in TypeScript, which is kind of like what a lot of people will see like in the real world. Like you'll join a project that's maybe been around for a few years, written JavaScript, and then like incrementally adopting TypeScript. Yeah, there's also the easier path is just like setting it up for TypeScript to begin with, which you can do right out of the box with the React Native CLI. So like, if you remember back to our first session when we started this project, we did like React Native init and then like beer seller, right? We like ran that command that I have highlighted here.
Mm-hmm.
If you did it, but with this template, React Native template TypeScript, you already get TypeScript out of the box configured for you.
Cool.
And you also get a really nice, I will say like, this is really nice because the TS config file it gives you is like really good default configuration, but it also has every single other possible configuration key value, which is like a big object. It gives you every other one like commented out. So if you wanted to, like, you could just uncomment stuff and like play around with like the strictness of TypeScript in your project, which is pretty cool. So highly recommend if you're gonna like, you want to go all in on React Native and TypeScript, like just start off with the TypeScript template. Same with React, like the Create React app also has a TypeScript template. I'd say 100% go for it. You can always like dial back TypeScript and be like, yo, just look at the files that are TypeScript files. Don't look at my whole project, you know, which is nice. Like it's very flexible. Like some people want to use it very strictly. Like, so one of the things you could say is like, I don't really know if brewery name, like what kind of type it's going to be. I'm just going to say any, and you can set up your TypeScript configuration to not allow this so that everything has to be strictly typed. Only recommend doing that though on like a freshly created project from like where everything is going to be built with TypeScript. Otherwise it can be more hassle. But yeah, that's all you would need to do for like to make this TypeScript.
Cool, thank you.
Yep. Cool. So I got this. This should be going. We're a little actually over time. I'm just gonna write some to-dos here. To do make this a reducer. To do make this a global context. To do persist this in on the device, persists across refreshes and restarts. Well, actually, first thing we should do is like to make this an array of beers. And that's to file list. So that's actually what we really want to do next. So we're just adding some to-dos here for next time. What we're going to do is like we're going to, instead of this just being like setting a string as like the beer, like in this way we can only have like one beer in our entire inventory. We're going to make this an array. So it's going to be like every time you add a beer, it's going to add that beer instance or like that beer object of like the brewery and the beer name onto an array of like our inventory. That array is going to get passed to the flat list we have in the my beer component that we have commented out right now, so that we actually have our inventory list. We're going to make this a reducer, which is going to be a way where we play nicely with React. So what we could do is like we could just say like you know, like set brewery, like I don't know, beer list, set beer list, right? It's like use state or something. And like what we could be doing is like we could be doing something like super janky, like beer list equals an array, and then like const like I know add to beer list is just like something that basically just takes beer list and like pushes like our beer name or something like that. That's not going to work with React. So what we want to do, because it's like it's the actual beer list reference is staying the same. What we're actually going to do is like create a reducer that's going to like take our beer name, take our brewery name, and then take the current list and like add it to that list. So we're basically going to be like writing the core of like the concept of Redux, but like very, very, very simply. Redux is pretty simple, like at like for 99% of the cases. So we'll just basically do Redux like from scratch here. Just going to be not a lot of lines of code. We're going to throw that into a global context. So now we're like really talking about basically our own version of Redux, and use hooks. And then we're going to persist this on devices. This is going to be pretty like React Native. Specific thing like on web, you have this concept of local storage. In React Native, or like you have this concept of async storage, which the async there, like that kind of throws people off. The async it's very much like local storage. It's just called async storage because they really want you to know that it's not necessarily going to be a synchronous call to get that data. But yeah, you can use the community package now. Sorry, I lost track of my thought there. But the async storage is like it's like local storage on web, except like it's a persisted thing. Like the user's not going to clear that until they like delete their app. So you can like keep stuff there. It's very common. Like we're going to use it. We're going to persist like all of our users' inventory there first, and then we're going to go and set up our backend. I think that's the steps that kind of make sense. And this won't be wasted work either, because we will be using async storage for like storing user credentials, cookies, stuff like that on the device, so that like users don't have to log in every time once we set up the backend and the authentication and all that. Users won't need to log in every time because we're going to store those credentials like a token on the device in async storage. But yeah, I think that's what we're going to do next in our next session. But we're a little over right now. So I think I'll end it there. But if we can spend like the next 5 minutes if anyone has any questions or requests, feedback, comments, like, is this too slow? Is it too fast? Is it not covering what you want to do? How to use global? Like, so do you mean like something like window or like a global, like you would in a browser or something, or? Yeah, so we don't have this concept of window, which is like a browser concept in global. So yeah, you don't really have that in React Native. You could, yeah, I mean, the best approach is to, if you needed something in like a global state, is to use like a context or Redux or something like that, but you don't necessarily have like it can't be like deep in here and then expect to find something off of like a window or something like that. I hope that makes sense. That's true. I don't know what that would do. I mean, I guess like you can create like global variables and stuff, but interesting. Might be something that you saw a project use a global. It might be something that they just like created. You can like create, like I could create a constant here and like access it somewhere else. On Johnny, I'm running into a bunch of errors while trying to build iOS app. Is there a selection? Ooh, so there is like setup. I should probably put this in like the README for the project. But if you do want to build this yourself, go here. That's the official React Native documentation website, and like setting up. You can see here, there's like choose what kind of system you're on. If you want to build iOS, you do need to be on Mac. That is a Apple requirement. They want to sell more Macs. You're on a Mac. Okay, cool. So go there. Make sure that Mac is selected here, iOS is selected here, and you get the documentation for that. There are a few things you have to do the very first time. You only have to do this once on your machine, but like you want to have Homebrew installed on your system. You want to then, like, Homebrew is a great thing if you don't already have it installed. It's very simple to install. You literally just like copy and paste this command into your terminal. Yeah, and it will take like a couple minutes. But Homebrew is a great package manager for macOS. Yeah, you can use it here to install Node to make sure you have like a Homebrew managing Node, and Watchman, which is a project from Facebook, I believe, that is like, oh, yeah, here it is, for watching changes in the file system. And then for Xcode, you're going to need to have Xcode installed. It's free. You can download it from the Mac Store, or you can download it from Apple's like developer website. Just install that and open it one time. That's the easiest thing. Is open Xcode just one time, and it'll ask you to install the Xcode command line tools. You just need that for like doing any kind of iOS development. So yeah, it should install those automatically, but you could just follow through this guide. The other thing is these, you do need to have Cocoapods installed as well. But yeah, like all of these things, like this whole section here, like you just need to do this one time and you can build as many React Native projects as you want on that computer that you do this on. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I'm in the Cocoapods install step. I think my Ruby was out of date. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. You will need to probably also, I should really like, maybe I should put that here. Is like to do app and setup. So you will need to do like a, like when you're in the project folder, like we'll just list this out, cd into iOS and do, once you have Cocoapods installed, do a pod install. That will install the iOS native dependencies. You only need to do a pod install like one time, and then any other time that you update any native iOS dependencies. But you just do that one time and it should work. And like after you run the pod install, like it's gonna just run through this real quick. It's not, it shouldn't actually be downloading any, should it? On mine, I think I have it already. Yeah. So then you would like cd back and then just do your yarn start and then your yarn like iOS. Hope that helps. Good luck if you have an M1 Mac. I think, yeah. I've got to head out, but thank you all for coming. We'll probably be off next week. Hopefully Taylor will be back for the next session though, but we'll probably be off for next week for American Thanksgiving week, and then back after that. So thank you all for coming. Leave comments in the meetup group in the comment section there if you want to see something else, have any feedback for us. Until next time.